Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. And if you've been following along these last several weeks, we've had a lot of attention, and unfortunately, we're going to have to continue to have attention on the subject of war. And this is not a comfortable topic for us to have to cover, but we do know that unfortunately, this is one of the things that we were warned about, that the king was pretty clear about, we would see before the end of days. And that is, of course, the wars and rumors of wars. And so thank you again for joining us, those of you that are joining us here on Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. Now, BitChute has been starting to, apparently, they have a new service where they migrate your videos over to your BitChute channel from YouTube. So that's kind of nice. At first, when that started happening, I started kind of going, "What's going on here?" I didn't upload that. How'd that end up on my other channel? And then little by little, more of them came over, and finally doing a little investigating. At first, I was a little freaked out. I was like, "What's going on here?" But then it turned out that that's just part of their new updated service. So you'll find us, some of our stuff is slowly going over to BitChute, which is kind of nice. So if you're watching us on BitChute, shalom to you as well. And I pray that you can hear us okay. I assume we're coming in 5x5. Those of you that are joining us on uh, Facebook, just thank you again for sharing the link and encourage you all. We love you all and are thankful for everyone who is a believer in Messiah. And this is where we unite. You know, we got to put aside all of our weights and differences and arguments. Hey, we've got to ally up, and that is a very important point at this point in time in history. I believe a lot of people are starting to figure that out. That we've got enough enemies. We don't need to create any more, if you know what I mean. And so, a really good idea for us to find common ground with our brothers and sisters in Messiah, and remember that this is Earth's most perilous days that we're walking toward here. So this is very dangerous, and life is precious. We should preserve life at every opportunity. Those of you again that are joining us maybe for the first time, we have a website called Remnant Watch where we will be putting all of the links that we discussed tonight, and we use this site basically as an aggregate site. So we can kind of keep a little bit of a track of the stories that we go over here on our reports. And that allows us to do a quick scan of the headlines, and you can dig into the stories that are of our interest to you. But again, we do this as a service of love as a house. And so thank you, members of Remnant House, who make this and other things that we do possible. Without you, we couldn't make this happen. So thank you again for being part of a family that cares enough to be on watch and sound the alarm for these things that are coming to pass in our hour. And of course, we have to begin our news in the same place we left off. Unfortunately, this is going to probably dominate the news cycle for quite some time. And boy, I can't imagine who might be just loving that, right? So, unfortunately, this is a topic that isn't going to go away, folks. And now the theater of operations is about to get more interesting as Erdogan, and for those that don't know who this is the prime minister of Turkey, which is now threatening to declare war on Israel and send military to Gaza in a chilling warning. Now, this is a NATO partner, so this would not be good. This would be the snake eating its tail, if anybody understands what that might mean. Okay. And so Erdogan threatens to declare war on Israel and send military to Gaza in a chilling warning. The Turkish president suggested at a speech at a pro-Palestine rally this afternoon, and he's speaking to 1.5 million Turkish people who were pretty upset about the things going on. Erdogan delivered a speech at a rally this afternoon, in which he told attendees that Israel was responsible for war crimes and framed Hamas as freedom fighters. So depending upon where people are falling on this, the rhetoric is going strong one direction or another, in comments that have been prompted an Israeli outcry and led the country to withdraw its diplomatic presence. President Erdogan suggests assaults on Gaza constitute a massacre. A massacre. I can certainly understand how he and a lot of other people might conclude the same. We are not looking at equal force on both sides. And it looks like it is, quite one-sided. And the beginnings of this conflict are dubious. We've got a lot of questions that have come up in the last 3 weeks with regard to how this entire episode even began. And we've all been paying attention to various trigger and inflection points for the last year, just watching various spots. And we knew, of course, that the warmongers were going to use every opportunity that they could think of to bring war, because that's what the book of Revelation warns us about. And so we see some of the same activity that was prior to the flood, man's mind on evil continually looking for ways to fight each other, dominate one another. This is very, very carnal behavior. Who's the biggest guy on the block kind of thinking. And it's one of those, we all walk away. All the grown-ups go, you both look ridiculous, as we walk away. Cooler heads need to prevail. Unfortunately, the atmosphere seems to be one where they're just going to continue to stoke up this war and then threaten that it's going to spread. Look at this, folks. We're seeing more of this, where they're sort of warning other countries and other places that, hey, you're going to be next. Netanyahu warns partners in the Arab world that they will be next in a national address on Hamas war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned fellow nations and allies in the Middle East that they will be next to be targeted by the axis of evil for retribution. So here we go with the name calling and the labeling, which is a very important part of the bipolar manipulation, basically mind control, that is used to great effect and has been used to great effect through the centuries. So here we go. Earlier in October, Netanyahu linked this axis as Iran, Hezbollah, and their minions. Just sort of, whoever we decide to throw in there as a minion. And Netanyahu spoke with reporters on Saturday for the first time since the start of the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. Netanyahu vowed to unleash the Israeli military to engage in a long ground war for the Gaza Strip, noting that this was their, quote, second war of independence. Second war of independence. Now, that wouldn't have anything to do with reports that we're now hearing that the Israeli corporation is expiring on the 31st. So is that what they mean by their second war of independence? Because I'm pretty sure that one of the things that I find quite incredulous is somehow making Hamas the equivalent, an equal enemy. So this does bother me quite a bit. However, it does appear that there are bad guys and bad actors on both sides, and you cannot justify in any way, shape, or form even the remotest attacking of any civilians on either side. But Hamas, it appears that they started this. So we're still getting to the bottom of what happened just on that day. And like I said before, and have repeated twice now in two different reports, we've got a lot of questions that are still unanswered So, to go on as if, hey, these are all foregone conclusions, this is all settled information, nothing further to see here, that isn't going to fly. That is not going to work. There are those that are going to be holding officials accountable. They are literally chomping at the bit to do that. And so, but we're not wasting any time. We're seeing an escalation. And so here we go. We see U.S. strikes 2 facilities linked to Iranian-backed militias. Again, according to CNN. So this is the other part of this that gets a little troublesome, is you got to keep taking their word for everything. U.S. strikes 2 facilities linked to Iranian-backed militias in Syria following a series of attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East. Sounds reasonable. Hey, you attacked our guys, so we're coming after you, right? The U.S. carried out airstrikes targeting 2 facilities linked to Iranian-backed militias in eastern Syria on Thursday, according to a statement from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, following a series of drone and rocket attacks against U.S. forces in the region. And so I guess I understand that there was a drone attack, and one person who was trying to escape died of a heart attack. And so they took that as the green go, and so they started to counterattack. And again, folks, I think you got some, it's pretty obvious we got some trigger happy, ready to go, raring to go folks looking to get some serious conflagration going in the Middle East. And now, of course, the ground offensive has in fact begun. Israeli forces are attacking Gaza's main city from 2 directions, and armored Israeli forces attacked the Gaza Strip's main city from 2 directions on Monday and targeted the main road linking it to the south of Gaza, witnesses said, drawing more international appeals for Palestinian civilians to be protected. So on the one hand, they've got the sort of high ground in that, hey, we were attacked, but the way that they're going about systematically demolishing um, uh, what do you call it, Gaza, is almost looking like they planned it, almost like they expect to have a long clearing campaign using bombs as a way to demolish buildings and create opportunities for new real estate development. And so, what happens when they destroy everything? Well, that needs to be cleared, and now new development needs to come in. And who's to say who's going to be in charge of that new development now that all of those things have been blown up, and they're not even done? So there are thousands of buildings in, and they're not even remotely done with this attack, if you will, if you want to call it that. I think it's a controlled demolition. It looks to me. I mean, what did we see on the big terror day here in the United States? What did we see? A controlled demolition. What are we seeing here? Maybe the same thing. Okay, maybe the same thing. And I see a lot of voices that are standing on the sidelines with feigned, disgust and sounding very upset and making headlines. But again, another week has passed, and there's still no refugee station in southern Gaza. There's still no international relief organization that has set up a camp to support them, to supply anything. There's still no solution coming from, for example, Egypt, which is in their southern border. There's still nothing that reflects that those in the region are offering, just like I said, not military, but humanitarian aid. This is highly suspicious. So it would seem just logical that there would be humanitarian efforts to, at least at the very minimum, open the southern border of Gaza to allow some relief for those that are simply trying to get out of the conflict, which they claim they're trying to help people do. So this makes me very suspicious of what's really going on here. And the UN chief And, a lot of different voices are starting to come out with the same concerns. We see here the UN chief says Gaza is facing an avalanche of human suffering. The United States chief warned Friday that Gaza faces an unprecedented avalanche of human suffering due to lack of food, water, and power during Israeli bombing in response to the Hamas attack. And so, of course, they're demanding and calling for a ceasefire. Look at this. I repeat my call for a humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and the delivery of life-saving supplies, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in a statement. And of course, the response was, there will be no ceasefire. Okay, so that right there told you a lot, because when it's one thing, kind of like when you have you're watching a video and you're determining if somebody is operating in self-defense or if they're operating in like a malicious intention, right? So we've all been there where we've seen that. We've seen that situation. Well, it seems to be that, if the bad guy's running away, right, there's no need now to shoot him in the back. In fact, if you do, then you might be prosecuted for, malicious murder, right? Because you maliciously murder someone you're no longer in danger. The person's gone and you chase them 4 blocks and shoot them. I got news for you. You're going to get in trouble for that, right? You're probably going to be, no matter what your justifications, you're going to be charged with murder because you were no longer under threat. You were no longer in danger. Okay. And this is what the Chinese warned about 2 weeks ago. And we talked about this, where they're going beyond what's needed to reestablish their security. So now so this is what makes everybody go, what was your real plan here? Right. So, of course, if you remember, there was a horrific story of hundreds of people dying at a hospital, and the initial reports that were coming out, and this was during the President Biden visit to the area, and they were trying to essentially blame it on Hamas, if you remember, saying, oh no, that was one of their own guys trying to blow up one of their rockets, and their rocket exploded, and that's what blew up the hospital. That was the story that we were fed, right? That was the sort of counter narrative that was pushed out to the public. And then, of course, the various footages came out, the Al Jazeera footage, the various eyewitness accounts and so forth, which debunked that entire narrative, right? So it did not hold up to scrutiny once the general public and the knowledgeable public, if you will, began to look at that story. Well, the same thing. And so this explains why you're now seeing this narrative shift. Okay, I said all that, and this is why we try not to get too myopic. We like to step back, 10,000-foot view, folks, informed without being overwhelmed. But we watch this. So now we're seeing a narrative shift that happened just this week. Okay, Hamas terror base is hidden beneath Gaza's largest hospital. Oh, so no. I'm sorry. Oh, you mean that hospital? Oh, that hospital. Oh, that one we attacked because there's a terror base underneath it. So you see how we just shifted narrative now. Now, you meant that blow up? Oh, that was a Hamas terror group we're trying to blow up. So these things, and again, it looks almost like they're cleaning it up. Like, oops, we made a mistake, and we came out with the wrong narrative, and somebody read the wrong lines, and now we've got it figured out. Now we've got the right story to come out and explain ourselves. An IDF spokesman said Israel has concrete evidence that hundreds of terrorists flooded the hospitals in recent days. So this, of course, gives backstory sort of cover for the potential because now all of a sudden what started happening, guys, is there's all these stories coming out of all the hospitals that they've attacked. And so all of a sudden they're losing public opinion going, oh no, We can't have that. You can't have people questioning your high ground. And so they had to come out with this. Look at this. Israeli Defense Forces alleging the discovery of a Hamas military base under their largest hospital. The IDF has released images and an accompanying graphic claiming an extensive command post exists under Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. Hamas terrorists operate inside and under Shifa Hospital and other hospitals in Gaza. So they threw that in there. Did you catch that? Okay, you see that right there? They just sort of threw that in the story real quick. Just and other hospitals in Gaza. Just want to put that into the public psyche. Okay, just deposit this notion into the mind of the people. Why? Because they got to have cover for this blunder, this death of hundreds in a hospital. This reprehensible, folks, but this is how war covers a lot of things, and they can get away with things doing this. And of course, they're going to talk about a network of tunnels, and that's going to be their cover for any bomb they want to drop, is we're bombing a tunnel. And how will you verify that? Well, you can't. But just listen to us, because, we're telling you there was a tunnel under there, and that's why we dropped that bomb on there, because there was a tunnel. And don't you ever question us, because we know where the tunnels are. Okay. Right? So, so it's like, woo! And if you're feeling like that, if you're feeling like, man, this is getting a little crazy, join the club. Okay, join the club, because I believe that that a lot of us are starting to feel that way a little bit, right now. And speaking of tunnels, this is now the new big storyline that you're going to hear more and more about. And this, of course, is meant to scare, and it is a little terrifying to think that just underneath what you think is normal life is these rabid gangs of terrorists running in the streets, under the streets, right? So that's a scary thought. Gaza tunnels, terrorist infrastructure uncovered by Israeli geologists. The tunnels in Gaza initially had some basic characteristics in common with other evacuation sites in Israel and elsewhere in the world, such as burial caves, mines, and hiding systems. And so they're saying that the invasion and massacre in Israel on October 7th brutally showed how Hamas has significantly improved and strengthened its tactical and strategic terror capabilities since it began to dig into and hide in the Gaza Strip decades ago. The infamous Hamas tunnels have played a central role in this worrisome development. So this is the new, and yeah, they know where those tunnels are because they sold them the equipment, right? Yeah. Right, so it's this is again another highly suspicious part of this, which of course justifies a long campaign, because now you got to clear out all these tunnels, and now you've got a big big problem, and you're going to need some, you're not going to need regular forces for this. You need to bring in the elites. Okay, you've got to bring in the elite troops, and this is now we're getting serious, folks. Now it's getting serious. Israel said its best soldiers were fighting Hamas inside the Gaza Strip on Saturday night, as Benjamin Netanyahu declared that the second stage of a long war against the terror group had begun. And so they keep saying this, they keep laying this story down, that it's going to be a long, drawn-out, protracted conflict, and saying his troop had killed hundreds of terrorists. And Mr. Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, said Israel's campaign to abolish evil was only just beginning. And this is a war with multiple stages. Today we move to the next one. The objective of this war requires a ground operation. The best soldiers are now operating in Gaza. A larger Israeli military operation against Hamas has been anticipated since it pledged to destroy the group in the wake of the October 7th attacks. And so now they're bringing in the elite soldiers, right? So this should be a quick mop up, man, or a deep penetrating attack. And what's happening is they're finding that, well, it's not quite going as easy and as fast as they had initially thought. So I think that's why they're saying this is going to be a long, um, we've entered the long stage of this war, and setting the right expectation for the people so that they don't expect this to be a quick campaign, because after all, right now there's already calls for a ceasefire, and Israel has already flat rejected there will be no ceasefires. Right, so they want to go after them completely. So that is, here's their attitude right here. If you're wanting to know how they feel, here you go. Hamas will feel our wrath tonight, warns Israel as it unleashes unprecedented airstrikes in Gaza. I might suggest that it's just the average person that's going to feel it. IDF steps up ground operation and tells Palestinians to flee south now as invasion looms with phone lines and internet cut across the city. And so the level of siege is biblical. Hamas will feel Israel's wrath. The top political advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu warned as Israeli warplanes tonight unleash airstrikes of unprecedented intensity across all parts of the Gaza Strip. Bum, bum, bum. This is the way that they're rolling this out. And saints, understand something. We're taking a look at this and we're seeing, and I'm not sure that it's conveying the picture that they're trying to convey. They're making themselves actually look impotent to a large degree, because they have built up in the minds of the people such overwhelming military power and strength that now that they are facing what many would consider to be a blip on the radar militarily, to deal with, and they're having quite a time dealing with that. Now, you may have remembered that a couple of reports back, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that the FBI director, Christopher Wray, had warned that the United States would see some terror activity and it would erupt. And so, he seems awfully prophetic because, of course, we had the main shooter, and that just came out last week. We had the man that went on a shooting spree, and we didn't even get a chance to report on that. It happened in between weekly news updates, and in between that time period, that entire saga has already concluded. The main mass shooting suspect was found dead, sources said. Robert Card was found dead with apparently a gunshot wounds, and now this has become another suspicious event, because now I'm hearing that there was more than one gunshot wound. So the plot thickens, and there's constant attempt to put us in a state of mind. And I think these guys know exactly what they're doing in terms of the human psyche, especially the psyche of the West. They have planted certain things in programming that they are trying to trigger. And so what I keep picking up is this sort of what looks like haphazard actions and haphazard activity to me. And this is just one man's view. So you can take it and you can toss it, you can dump it, or you can agree with me or disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. But it looks to me like they're trying to trigger people. Remember, we talked about that trauma bomb that is, like the like the baby boomer bubble. That's a bubble that travels. Well, there's a trauma bomb bubble, and people that have been traumatized by a lot of it has been by media, because we really didn't understand the power of this thing called television. We didn't really understand it. We grabbed the invention, we put it out there, and we just started to consume this media. And I don't think we realized what it would do to the psyche. I think there were those that did know what it would do to the man, to the human or the person and their ability to distinguish between reality and the make-believe world. And so there's a lot of psychological warfare and cracking, attempting to essentially get society to crack using various events. And so some of these may seem innocuous, they may seem like nothing, but they're triggers. And I believe that they're meant to signify, to be a signal for other events. So we may want to continue to stay in heightened alert as the days continue to unfold. Now, this story, I found this to be really interesting. And I want your guys' input on this, okay? Because this one threw me. Bombs away. U.S. builds a new nuclear gravity bomb. Okay. So, what? Okay. A gravity bomb. Now, look at what it says, guys. It says it's 24 times more powerful than Hiroshima nuke to take on the threat of Russia and China. This just came out. This is like today. Okay. This is today old. That's how long this story is. Okay. Now, some of you are already probably figured out where I'm going with this, right? So the U.S. is building a new nuclear bomb 24 times more powerful than one dropped on Japan during World War II. America's Defense Department revealed a new version of the B-61 nuclear gravity bomb in its development. So they haven't quite got it yet, but they're working on it, guys. They're working on it. Okay. The U.S. Defense Department is developing a new version of the B-61 nuclear gravity bomb. Bum, bum, bum. It will yield, look at this, guys, okay? 24 times the power than the one dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. You Russians and Chinese, you better recognize, you better watch it, because we got a bomb that's 24 times, okay? You Russians and Chinese. And I'm going, what in the world are they trying to pull on the American people just this year alone? I mean, this is just this year, okay? Not to mention previous years. So I was going, wait a second. 24 times nuclear power of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Are you joking? There's supposedly, we're told this. Supposedly, they already had this, right? Look at this. The Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon ever made. This is just May of this year, right? Just May of this year. And look what they're claiming. So they're claiming that this bomb is, what was it, like 3,000? Yeah, here we go. 3,300. 3,300. And these guys are developing one that's 24 times the power. And this one they've already got is 3,300 times. Something's fishy weird going on here with these narratives. It's almost as if somebody forgot to check. And I'm sitting there going, I'm pretty sure that almost all the intercontinental ballistic missiles and all of the like Trident missiles and the ones that come out of the nuke or the submarines, like they're all more than 24 times Hiroshima. That's like considered small in like nuclear terms, right? So I'm going, what is this story? Why would they throw this out there? But I think it's almost as if they just know that the average person is not very smart and doesn't really fact check. And even if they do, so what? The news cycle is so short, no one's going to remember this anyway. So it's almost like just throwing stuff out there to throw it out there. I just thought that was really weird. So we just, we caught him, but that was a little weird, right? And again, they continue to saber rattle at China at the same time. Does anybody else find that to be a little on the crazy side? I do. Okay, I find that to be nuts. That they're already engaged in Ukraine. You are already engaged in the Middle East. You got problems all up and down Africa. You got problems all over your southern border. And oh, yeah, why not? Let's go ahead and take on another superpower in the South China Sea. This never is making any sense to me. South China Sea, Biden says U.S. will defend the Philippines if China attacks. I don't think China is trying to attack the Philippines, but I do think they're having an argument over their waterways. Okay, but nevertheless, they're posturing. U.S. President Joe Biden has warned China that the U.S. will defend the Philippines. You guys better stop. You better stop attacking us. You better quit attacking us. So it's almost like they're calling it into existence. It's bizarre, folks. To me, it's a little on the bizarre side. So Mr. Biden reiterated his ironclad defense commitment to the Philippines. Manila has contested Chinese claims to the waters, cutting floating barriers and inviting media to film what it calls Beijing's dangerous moves at sea. Mr. Biden's statement on the South China Sea on Wednesday was the strongest since tensions began between Beijing and Manila heated up in recent months. So let's see, where else can we start a fight? Where else can we get in an argument? Where else can we be the anti-peacemakers, war brokers everywhere we go? So who wants to fight? You want to fight? And so the atmosphere of one of the warnings of the scripture is that he goes and takes peace from the earth, and it looks like that's what's happening. Is peace is being taken from the earth. So it's one of the judgments spoken of in the book of Revelation that we would be seeing in this time period. And one of the other judgments that you're seeing is this is, I think, what they're really covering up. So all of this is covering up the collapse and the demise of these corporations masquerading as republics and countries. And I think that the little by little, the world is sort of waking up to the reality of these things. And ghost towns, the federal office buildings are, excuse me, there. It looks like an ad trying to jump in. Apologize there, folks. Federal office buildings are 80% vacant. A government audit finds. So again, it's behind a paywall, but you get the point. The Agricultural Department is headquartered at the gateway between Washington and Virginia, in a building rich in history, but in any given day, roughly 90% of it sits empty. So we've got a so-called government, and they figured out that they don't need people actually in the buildings. They just need the building with the name on the front, so that when you get a piece of mail with the name on the front and the building, you like, and you just do what it says. They figured out they don't actually need people. They don't need it. This is a little funny, but where your minions at? Where your minions? What happened to your minions? Don't you supposed to have minions in all these cubicles? They figured out they don't need the minions. They just send you pieces of paper. They send you a letter and scare you. And that's it. They said, oh, what do we need the minions for? We just send them a letter and they all just do what we tell them. So it's almost funny. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. Your deficit, your spending is in a deficit. Your country's going, and you're out making wars with other, and your buildings are empty. And if you can't see that this all is a fiasco, I don't know what to tell you. So there is a war. There is a war going on underground. For those of you that have had your ear to the ground, that are a little bit picking up on some of the alternative news and other rumblings that are going on, a lot of it is rumor. A lot of it we can't confirm. A lot of things we cannot really hardcore identify. And all of you have seen the rumors. We've all seen, depending upon what side you're on, you've seen rumors and things that are, you're like, well, I hope that's true. I hope they're going to get bad guys down there. But here's one that does look like there may be some truth to it, because we know that airports, especially after what we've learned over the years about the Denver airport. So when we see a shallow earthquakes under an airport, we pay attention. Minor earthquake under San Francisco airport rattles the nerves. A 3.7 magnitude earthquake hit San Francisco on Friday evening with an epicenter under the city's international airport. Wow. Blowing up any tunnels, maybe? The quake struck about 8 miles beneath the airport at 6:38 p.m. local time, and the USGA said so. There are some that are suggesting that some of these shallow earthquakes are actually the good guys blowing up the things of the bad guys. So don't be shocked if we get reports in the near future that come out and say, yeah, that's what was happening, that there were different events going on and underground things. One of the things that we got a warning about in 2014 was that there were extensive underground cities, and since then, now it's common knowledge. Now it's no big deal. Like you say that today, and everybody looks at you like, yeah, I saw that on TikTok, I saw it on BitChute. You're not telling me anything. But back in 2014, that was big revelation, big news that we were informed of. And so that was meant to give us some courage going into these days. I'm very grateful. Thank you, Elohim, for that word to warn us, so that when we saw that information, not only would we know that it is accurate, but we would also know that the rest of what he told us, that he would protect us through this time period, would also come to pass. And so do not let your heart be troubled as you see these things happening. That doesn't mean that there aren't real perils, folks. There's some real serious perils that are in the earth today. And one of them just happened. One thing is really rough just happened in Mexico just yesterday. As a matter of fact, they had I believe it was a category 5. Let me pull this up. And they are throwing like their national, their reserves, their troops, if you will. Mexico throws troops and aid at Acapulco as hurricane death toll rises. I understand there are over 100. Mexico government on Sunday intensified efforts to get the stricken coastal city of Acapulco back on its feet as the total of dead and missing from a record-breaking hurricane that ravaged the iconic beach resort continue to rise. Hurricane Otis ripped through Acapulco as a Category 5 storm on Wednesday, wrecking homes, hotels, and businesses with 165-mile-an-hour winds. Wow. Hello. Right? That's some serious wind. And that was as a result of course, that hurricane coming. And so we'll see if I can get some footage. I think I do have footage right here that, let me mute it because otherwise it'll be, there we go. So you should see some footage of just some of the damage that came ashore. Looting, of course, broke out as food, water, and gasoline became scarce after the destruction caused by Otis, which the government on Sunday said has killed 48 people, with 6 people still missing. Excuse me. The governor of the southern state of Guerrero, which Acapulco is located, earlier said that 36 people were unaccounted for. Now, I saw a report today that number had reached 100. So that may be unconfirmed. That's unconfirmed, but that's what I saw. So it is certainly rising and of grave concern for the people of Acapulco. We're going to get Acapulco back on its feet, starting with its people, he said in a video on social media. Dozens of pieces of broken boats dotted the bay on Sunday, with smashed yachts and dinghies piled up on the shore. And so, as you can see in the footage, this thing, definitely anything on the coast or coastal areas were hit, pretty hard, and a lot of damage, a lot of work that now needs to be done in Acapulco. So Insurance companies, get your checkbooks ready. Looks like you're going to be paying out some big, big bucks to repair that. It's a lot of damage. It's a lot of work. So you're going to get your chance to build back better there in Acapulco, which is, of course, very heavily hit. And we're still waiting for closure on certain stories that are coming out of Lahaina. Continue to pray for those folks, guys, out there in Hawaii who were devastated by that fire and are still dealing with the aftermath. They're still dealing with the loss of the children, access to their properties. This is still an issue. It has not gone away. Just because the news cycle moved on doesn't mean the tragedy has moved on. And so these people will be dealing with that in Hawaii for some time to come. There are additional areas that we are watching. Let's not forget that we started the year with a catastrophe in the middle of the United States, and we haven't heard any significant effort to reclaim the territory that was severely contaminated by what happened in Palestine, in Ohio. So we're still reeling from various effects that have already impacted us as a country and in the West, but it's really all over the earth. If you look around, remember, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Turkey. We were just talking about um, um, Greece was just hit with flooding and so forth. Spain was just hit with massive flooding, and so it just seems like whether it's weather related, if it's not weather related, then it is the people are rising up, yellow jackets in the street. If it's not that, then it's terrorism and bombing. If it's not that, then there's war breaking out or rumors of war. And if it's not that, well, then it's economic destruction. So pick your poison, if you will. Pick the peril that you're going to face in this next season, because it seems as if it is either one or the other. Oh, and then let's add in the pestilence. Let's add in the brain eating amoebas. Let's not forget that. let's not let's not forget the floating and flying insectoids that are now spreading who knows what. So you've entered a full battle zone. Again, if they can't put you in an actual physical war zone, then you're going to be dealing with economic, social, mental. Some of you are really taxed by the mental warfare. Used to be I could go 6 months, a year. Now I got to go maybe a month, and I'm already taking a break from social media because it's so much contention. And it is as if there's been a button pushed. And again, like I said, as the scripture warned us that peace would be taken from the earth, there seems to be an increase of agitation and restlessness and contention and competitiveness, all of which is wars against the anointing, wars against your gifts and callings. We all do so much better when we cooperate, when we collaborate, when we share our wisdom and knowledge, when we share what we know, instead of thinking smugly, well, I know something you don't know and I'm not going to tell you. That's competitive. That's the kind of thing that causes all of these wars. But when you say, hey, I know things you don't know, let me come inform you, now you've removed blood from your hands. After all, the scripture tells us in Ezekiel 33 that if we see trouble coming and we don't blow the trumpet, then if that trouble comes and hits our brother, that blood is on our hands. But if we go to our brother and sister and we tell them the truth in love, right? We speak the truth in love, then we've cleaned our hands and gained our brother. Because a lot of times you'll find people are very grateful. Sometimes we pick up in our minds that people are going to be react a certain way, and so we don't tell them something, and the whole time they would have reacted totally differently. We got it worked up in our mind that they wouldn't receive it, and you'd be shocked if done in love, how easily people will receive things and can be corrected. How do you get to right except that you go through wrong? Sometimes you don't have a choice because there is no direct answer, and you have to learn and you have to seek it. And as you do, you're going to be walking past a lot which isn't right until you go, aha, here it is. Here's the truth. Now walk in it. We all are in that journey together. So let me encourage you out there to be patient with each other, to be kind and loving, to take the things that you are learning that you believe you have a revelation that's superior to somebody else's, then help your brother become more excellent. The last thing we need in this hour is anybody out being smug and acting superior. We need to get rid of all that thinking completely, and we need to serve one another. We need to remember that Elohim is constantly looking for anything haughty to remove it. So when he sees any haughtiness, high-mindedness, anything that exalts, that's self-exaltation, he's going to remove that. He's going to deal with that. That's a flaw, and he's searching for flaws. As he's looking over his chosen, he's looking for any that may have gotten in that don't have on the right garments of humility, meekness, and kindness, right? So let's remember that despite what we may see, the atmosphere is war. They're trying to take peace from the earth. So what's your assignment? You are the peacemakers. You are the bright lights in the firmament. You are the ones that the world needs to see in this hour. You are the ones that Elohim wants to shine bright in this day of darkness. So let me encourage you to not let your light be hidden. Don't put it under a bushel in this moment. Now people need more than ever to see your love, your compassion, your kindness, your goodness, your meekness, your gentleness, your peace, your joy, all of the fruit of the Ruach, and your temperance, of course, in all things. So let me just encourage you. I know it's hard. I know there's a lot going on at once. So if you feel that you need to just retreat away from all of it, that is okay. You obey that urge. You obey that unction, and you go get that time you need. And then you come on back and you be part of the family again and put your shoulder to that battle. And this is where we're going to be. We're going to be in this moment for apparently a while. They're gearing up for a long, drawn out conflict. And that means we have to continue to shine the light of the gospel of the kingdom in the midst of all of this, in the midst of all of their drama. They're going to have some drama. I mean, no, they're just having drama. Okay. In the midst of all that, we need to shine light, not taking sides. Folks, try not to get drawn into the left-right dichotomy, the yin-yang, good guy, bad guy, red, blue. These are all manipulations. These are all attempts to divide and conquer and control. So don't play the game. Just be aware of it. Be aware that it's going on. We move around it. We see it. We understand it. We understand how people's passions are raised on both sides. We navigate through it, and we apply oil where Elohim puts it in our heart to do so. Okay? Understand that this is going to be a difficult walk. It's going to be hard to watch. Remember what Psalm 91 tells us, that with our eyes we behold the recompense of the wicked. And so some of what you're beholding, saints, is unavoidable. I know it's hard on you. I know it's difficult on your soul. I know that some of the sad stories and some of the difficult stories are very hard. They're hard to hear. But we need to stiffen up a bit, be strong and courageous, because we need to walk through this nasty neighborhood together in one accord. We need to see the price of sin. We need to see the results of disobedience. We need to see what happens when people do not obey the word of Elohim. See it with our eyes, get a really good look, because that will remove the notion of opening those doors in the times to come. And so I believe this is not only a major cleanse, but an awakening and a realization that the word of the living Elohim is true, that what he says is righteous is indeed righteous, and what he warned us would occur if we didn't obey him has now, in fact, come to pass, is on our world. And so let me encourage you to be a blessing one to another. If you haven't yet, then you need to repent. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Find your place in the body of Messiah. Go be a blessing. Go find your way of being found faithful. There's still time. You're not out of time yet, and he's not done with you yet. You're still here. You're still available, right? Make yourself available. Make yourself a blessing. Be a part of something he's doing. Find a place to connect, wherever it is, and then join in on this effort to reach the lost, to encourage those who need it, to preach the gospel to every creature. Well, thank you again for joining us. It's been a great evening. That's our report for tonight. Join us again this time next week, right here on Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. And we look forward to seeing you then. We'll see you again on Shabbat, this coming up Sabbath day. It's been a great several weeks. We've been going over some very important information. We encourage you to join us then as well. Well, thank you again for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. Good night.